not a feeling, fat is not a feeling, fat is not a feeling. It's just not. To be perfectly honest, there are so many words in the English language that you could choose as other adjectives and other descriptions of how you're feeling, because I am fat. That is my description. Fat is not a feeling. And I will just keep going and going and going until people get it through their heads. Because what you're doing when you're saying, oh my God, I feel so fat, is you're telling the fat people in your life that you on your worst day is them in there every day. Fat is not a feeling.
So now we need our feelings policed? Hello YouTube, and welcome to the Body Honesty Project. My name is Lydia, and today I feel fat. And I'm not going to apologize for it, because fat to me is a completely legitimate feeling. I mean, if we're allowed to feel smart or dumb or pretty or ugly, we can certainly also feel thin or fat. And these are personal feelings, and we should not need to justify them. Now, today, I'm not going to dissect why fat can be a feeling, because, well, I've already done that. But instead, I'm going to tell you exactly why I feel fat and what I'm going to be doing about it. Now, for those of you who've been with me for a while, you know that I started off this channel as my 25-pound yo-yo. And that's because for pretty much since the age of 16 through 40, my weight went up and down about the same 25 pounds over and over again. The bottom of the range was about 120 pounds and the top of the range was about 145. Now, yes, there were some times like pregnancy where I would go above that 145 mark, but that typically was the top, and I very, very rarely slid underneath 120 pounds. Now, I had this cycle going for quite a long time, but right before I started this channel, I actually started to stabilize my weight. I was still fluctuating, but not nearly to that extent. I was pretty much maintaining somewhere between 125 to 130 pounds, something that's perfectly healthy for my height. Until last year, because last year I got married, and all the stresses that led into the wedding made me completely lose my appetite, and my weight plummeted 10 pounds. And I know that 10 pounds isn't that much weight, but for someone like me who's a pretty short woman at only 5'4", 10 pounds when you're only starting at 125 can be quite substantial. Now, let me be perfectly clear about two things. Number one, I was not trying to lose weight, but I'm also not an idiot, and I know that I lost weight because it was calories in versus calories out. I was just too nervous and anxious to eat without feeling sick, so my portions got smaller and smaller, and thus I started dropping weight. And the second thing that I want to say is that even though I lost the weight, this body is not an unhealthy weight. This body was unhealthy for me because of how I got to that weight. I know that some of you may be wondering how I recently went from this to this. And the answer is stress. I mean, if I gradually reduced my calories or gradually increased my exercise and I happened to end up at that weight, and I felt good and I felt healthy, well, there'd be nothing wrong with it. The problem was that I completely stopped eating and then I shrunk down to that weight. Now, after the wedding was over, there were still some family dramas and other stresses going on, so I still didn't have my appetite. And thus, I maintained that thin weight for several months. But recently, I've actually started to regain my appetite and started to regain a little bit more of the lifestyle I was leading before. And as such, my weight is starting to go up. But the difference is I'm actually going up towards what used to be my goal weight. And because I'm coming at it from the other end, I'm starting to feel really fat. The biggest change for me is in my clothing, because all the clothes that used to fit me properly before became a little bit loose and comfy. My tight, itchy work pants were no longer tight and itchy. They were loose and comfy, just like sweatpants. So now in the morning when I get ready to go to work, I don't want to put on anything because it will fit. And I don't like the way that things fit anymore. I prefer them to be loose. But the ridiculousness is that if I were to go shopping right now, I don't think I could mentally get myself to buy a bigger size so that it would be loose. Now, when I say this, I'm not saying that I wouldn't buy something that didn't fit me because I didn't like the number on it. No, that's not it at all. If I'm really after something, I don't really care what the number is. But I don't know if I could mentally get over the hurdle of intentionally buying something in a size bigger than what I need. And yes, I know that is incredibly fat phobic, and I really don't care, but that's just something that I don't know if I could get over. So, with all of these changes happening now, I am definitely feeling fat. But that's completely okay. It's all about how I handle it. I mean, when my appetite first started to come back, my husband jokingly said, "You've been skinny for so long, you can afford to let yourself go a little." And I laughed when he said that, but then I thought of this TikTok.
Yeah. What society has told you not to be, and fatness is on that list. So there's this aspect of like fatness being like the monster under your bed. It's this impending doom where you're like, at any moment I could do something and I could become fat, or like I could let go of my restrictions, right? Like letting yourself go is this idea of like, if you've let yourself go, you've gotten fat. And I love to think of this idea of like letting go, like to let go of something sounds so freeing.
And you know what? At first, that does sound pretty good. I mean, the ability to release and let go. But in order to truly let go, as she says, that involves quite a bit of denial and delay of reality. Let me give you an analogy, because, well, I just love analogies. Let's say that there are two students that just graduate from university, and they both get credit cards. Now, one student uses their credit card responsibly and always spends within their means. They put a little bit on, but at the end of every month, they completely pay it off. They put a little bit on, and then they completely pay it off. Every now and then, they can't pay it off, and they pay off as much as they can, but they always make sure that the next time they completely pay it off. They use their credit card responsibly. The other student takes their credit card and maxes it out, pays off the minimum balance, and maxes it out. The friend that is perpetually maxing out the credit card and paying off the minimum balance is living the high life because they can rack up credit and pay off only what they can as long as it meets the minimum payment. This friend tells the friend that's living within their means that they should live a little and enjoy their life. But the other friend says, you know, that money on your credit card, it isn't free. You have to eventually pay it off. So, some time passes. One friend, again, racking up the credit card, paying off the minimum, racking up the credit card, paying off the minimum, and the other friend only putting a little bit on, paying it completely off, putting a little bit on, and paying it completely off. Well, you know what? Over time, the friend that keeps on racking up debt on the credit card can no longer pay off the minimum. They just have too much debt. The interest has been compounding and compounding over the years, and they can no longer keep up with the payments. Now it's gotten to a point where they have bad credit. They can't get more credit cards. They can't buy a house. All this debt is chasing them. And what can they do? Whereas the friend with the good credit was able to get bank loans, able to buy a house, able to have a lot more success in their life by being financially responsible. Your body is no different. Adding layers and layers and layers of fat to it while you're letting go is just making a huge balance that you're going to eventually have to deal with later. And the people that maintain their balance do not need to go to the drastic steps that others have to do that didn't maintain their balance. Why can't we all just maintain our body balance? And of course, within the fat acceptance and fat liberation movement, it's never good enough to only focus on themselves and their own fat liberation. No, we need to push it on everybody else. And when I hear arguments like this,
Everyone should be a fat liberationist. No matter your size, fat liberation benefits you. Imagine what it would be like if we were all liberated from the idea that our bodies have to be smaller or look a certain way in order for us to live our best lives. Imagine spending your time worrying about anything other than your body.
that's not what you're doing at all. You are so not freeing yourself from diet culture. You are so not worrying about your body size anymore. If anything, you're doubling or tripling down on it and making it your whole identity. Like, they describe their experiences with diet culture as being so incredibly toxic that they needed to run away from it. Yet, they stuck around to continue to complain about it. I mean, if it's so bad, why don't you go away and do something else? That's like me hating my job so much that I quit on the spot. But instead of going away and finding another job or finding something else to do with my time, no, I decide to grab a picket sign and stand in front of my old boss's window every day to remind him how bad he made my life. Now, is that really productive? Is that letting go of a situation? Or is that involving yourself more into a situation? Because if you hate diet culture so much and you just want to live your life, go live your life! Because creators like this make all their content like this.
Fat, 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 da-da, da-da, fat.
So you're not really selling me on fat liberationism being the solution to my body image issues. Because the last thing I want to be is morbidly obese and more obsessed with my body. Which brings me to my conclusion. If you have let yourself go, well, what can you do? Well, the answer lies within you. Look at your life and see what areas you have let go. Is it financial? Is it your physical health? Is it your career? Is it your family? Have you dropped the ball on something that you really want to pick up again? Then look at the goals you have in your life. What do you need to achieve those goals? And what have you let go that's preventing you from achieving them? Then, with only true honesty, can you start making changes in your life to realize those goals? Making change isn't easy. It's hard. It's hard on so many fronts. Whether it's improving your mental health, your physical health, getting over an addiction, it's hard. It's hard work. But I believe that if you have the desire and the motivation, you can accomplish your goals. Which brings me right back to the start of this video. I feel fat, so what am I going to do about it? So here's my plan. I'm getting rid of my bathroom scale for 1 month. I'm not throwing it out, I'm just removing it from the bathroom so I don't have to see it. And over this time, I will be mindfully eating. Not intuitive eating, mindfully eating. Meaning I eat what I want without excessive measuring, but because of my knowledge of calories, I can pretty much eyeball approximately what everything is anyways. I eat till I'm satisfied and make sure that my meals are balanced. I'm going to make sure that I have regular activity, and I'm also going to make sure that I try to de-stress myself as often as possible, whether that's with meditation, walks, yoga, something. And after a month, if I've been consistent with all three things, eating well, exercising well, and also taking care of my mental health, I'm going to step on the scale and see what that number is. And try to accept it. I won't be ruled by a number on the scale, but the number does often coincide with how I'm living. So my number is not going to be your number, and vice versa. So when I say that my happy weight is around 125 pounds, that's my happy weight. It doesn't have to be your happy weight. And when I say that I was too skinny at 115 pounds, that means I was too skinny. You could be 115 pounds and not be too skinny, and that could be a perfectly happy and healthy weight for you. Just like when I'm at the top of my yo-yo and I'm 145 pounds, that feels too fat for me, but that could be absolutely perfect for you. So right now, I feel fat, but I am not fat. And I'm actively taking steps to accept the body that I have while also treating it right. And isn't that what body positivity should be? But of course, that's not the message that we get out of the fat acceptance community. If you're interested in seeing the video I did on being a fat liberationist, you can find that here. And if you're interested in the original I Feel Fat video, you can find that here. So until next time, stay body positive, but also body honest.